Good evening. How are you tonight? It is 9 p.m. Central Time. I'm John Schenk. Who's John Schenk? John Schenk is talking about himself in the third person. I, John Schenk, am the managing broker of Deerwood Realty in St. Louis, Missouri. We're a small residential real estate firm. We spend most of our time, in fact, all of our time, helping buyers buy homes and sellers selling theirs. In the time that I'm not doing that, I'm doing the Deerwood Realty live stream, and that's what you've found here on YouTube. Now we do not stream. We put the replays on Rumble. We would put it on Odyssey, but they're kind of jerks about how many subscribers I need. I have 135 subscribers, which isn't that good, but you need like 1,000 for Odyssey. And so anyway, the Deerwood Realty live stream, we talk kind of about current events, pop culture, the real estate market. We kind of combine everything into one show. And that's what you're watching now. I'm checking to see in my camera if I've got my screen centered. I feel like I do. A good show tonight. It's the first one back from the New Year's Day celebration. We have some thoughts on that. We'll go over. We'll talk about some tweets. We'll talk about some current events, some news. Then we'll get to some articles. The last article being the most interesting, coming at the end of the show. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can always show up in the chat, put down a comment. I read everyone's comments, positive and negative, because I don't know. It just seems like the thing to do. So that's the show. That's what we're going to do. I guess I'll get started 2 minutes in. I think normally I could waste 4 minutes or so. Man. So just talking about myself, I'm very bad at allowing myself to take breaks. I'm not proud of that. I don't like to take holidays off. I don't like any day that's different than another, but I tell myself all the time, look, you need to take some time off. Look, you need to get away from this stuff. Because I think real estate sales, there's always this concern that you're going to miss, someone's going to call and you're going to miss the call and they're going to call some other agent. You're always concerned that if you don't go show one house at one particular time, the person will never call you again. You're always concerned that I was in Europe and I was in Bosnia and we were doing a home inspection. There was a home inspection on one of my buyers' homes and I wasn't there. And I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. These things happen all the time. You just feel like you need to be a part of it 24/7. I constantly check my email all day long. And then there'll be times where I'll check my email and there'll be an email that's terrible. And rather than respond to it right away, I'll let it sit there and maybe sit there for a day before I respond. So you have this thing where you want to spend all your time, answering emails, answering the phone, answering your texts. Don't care about family time. Don't care about, anything other than always being on the go, always be closing. But that's not healthy. You'll get burned out. But what I've noticed is YouTube can be the same way. YouTube is a very, very weird animal. We put out our goal is one live stream a day for at least an hour, and then cut some shorts from the live stream. And also, if there's some sort of compelling video that we've managed to create, make that as part of its own individual video. That takes a lot of time. Plus, I have to research all the stuff we talk about at night. So that takes time. So if you're not careful, you can spend as much time on YouTube just putting together a show as you can doing the business of real estate. And so now I'm into two things that take a bunch of time. And so why I tell you this is because I don't think I've streamed since the 29th of December. I think that's the last time I streamed. And I have every night that I've not streamed, I sit around and I say to myself, you know, I'm going to relax. I'm going to watch some TV. I'm going to just everything's going to be good. And then I end up not being relaxed because I'm thinking, I could put out a YouTube stream and, at least I'd be doing something moving forward. I'd be creating content. And then I look at the stats every day for YouTube and it's like I was watching a video version of a podcast this weekend and it was about a guy that I follow and he's just done with YouTube. He's like I'm not happy and the guy that he was with said, "Yeah, getting a 10 out of 10 on a video is just terrible, isn't it?" And what he's talking about is you get your videos like ranked in your stats. And so, if you get a 1 out of 10, that's like the best performing video you've done. And then the rest of them are like, 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10. It does not feel good. It does not feel good at all. And you sit there and you go, given the resources I have, what can I do to make the videos better? And then they also talked about something negative sells. If I were to go outside and start my car on fire and take a video of it, I would get way more clicks than my live stream for real estate. If it doesn't work 100% of the time. For instance, I had one podcast video where I talked about the time I got sued. And then you'd think that would be like a good bit of misery. People tend to enjoy watching your misery. Schadenfreude. And so you'd think that would be a good one, but I didn't have enough. I didn't really have enough impressions at the time to like get it out. So it didn't do very well. But that negativity is what a lot of YouTubers kind of put together and use to get better. For instance, if you watch Hoovie's Garage, the whole thing is built around a guy who buys used cars and they're hoopties. They're terrible. And I mean, the negativity is what works. Now, what's funny about that situation is here's a guy buying used cars and they're terrible. Everybody's excited about the reveal of the terrible car and what's wrong with it. And then he gets so many views that he's able to buy more cars and make more terrible decisions. But he's gotten to the point where he's doing really well. I mean, he's got like Lamborghinis and the brand new Corvette, but it's based off of this concept of negativity. So if I could somehow turn the real estate stream into like just negative, it's possible. It's possible more people would watch, which is kind of backward, isn't it? Everyone, and that's the way it kind of shows up in the news. You always hear people say, "Well, I don't want to be brought down by the news. I don't want to hear all the negative things. I don't want to hear how people have been, shot and murdered, and I just don't want to hear that. I want to hear the good news about like about St. Louis. I want to hear about how, people are investing in the community, and I want to hear about how I don't even know what would be positive news. But no one really wants to. No one really wants positive news. Doesn't get any clicks. Negative news does. So it's just kind of fascinating. I would love to see the first news show, at least in a major city, come out with we're only doing positive news, and see how long it would last. I bet you not more than a month. So that being said, we got a few things to go over, and I don't exactly know where to start, but I'm going to frame it I'm going to frame the first article in a certain way. And I do that, and I tell you when I'm framing stuff, or when I know I'm framing stuff, so that you know that there's no, like, I'm not trying to hide anything. But let me frame it to you like this. What if there was a scientist, okay, an accredited biologist that would come out and say negative things, but those negative things would be what people who are environmentalists would love to hear, what love to believe. Things like the world's going to end because of overpopulation. What if there was a scientist? And so what if one group of people seized on that and, use that as a mantra to control the lives of others? That'd be pretty nefarious. That'd be pretty bad, wouldn't it? And then what if, when things aren't negative enough, and when the theories have been disproven, I mean, badly, what if you just keep going back to the guy and pretending it didn't happen? You get basically a paid shill. And I've noticed now, I mean, at the age of 45, I've noticed we have so many paid shills. People lie so much that you don't remember the lies because they're coming so quickly. And then people are flat out wrong. And then the question becomes, hey, if you're that wrong, when do you lose your public podium? When do you lose that? I mean, how wrong do your prognostications have to be before people call you out and say, look, this is terrible. Don't put this guy on the air anymore, or girl, because it's just worthless. It's like, we talk about like a credentialed class, right? Well, a biologist at a major research university at one of the Ivy League schools would be credentialed, right? Pretty much anything they say, it's not possible to have a different view, right? I mean, these are the most learned people in the world. They must be right. Anything they say, we should just listen, and we should agree with. But man, they're so often wrong. Now, I haven't talked about the particular fellow yet, but let me just say this: he's 90 years old. Graduated from school in 1932. And I say this, I had a difficult time in thinking about this, because we have this idea, this concept of respect for your elders, right? I mean, I've grown up that way. And then obviously, if you've been doing something for a long period of time, you would be better at it than other people, right? In theory, we talk about this. Now, look, if you dig into my past, you'll find out that I might have been a musician. Okay. But not a very good one. Not a very good one. And I'm telling you, I'm just positive of it. I worked harder than other musicians. I physically and mentally worked harder and worked longer than other musicians. Yet I come to you today as a real estate broker. Why? Well, some people have talent. Okay. It's a God-given talent. You say, well, there's no such thing as good. Whatever you want to say, I'm telling you, there are people, and I've seen them, that can sit down and play a piano after 2 years. I mean, like, unbelievably well. And then there's others that will struggle forever. That's talent. We don't want to believe that there's such a thing as talent, right? We want to believe that everyone is the same. We want to believe that if you work hard, pay your debts, you will have success in your given field. It's just not that way. It's just not that way. And I mean, the problem is the alternative is like, well, you mean, what are you telling me? There's like random successes. You just happen to find a field that you fall into where, you excel. Yes. Yes. It really, really hurts though, because, we can't run it. I mean, can we really run a society on the idea that everything is random and you have to fall into whatever you're good at? That's tough. But anyway, we go back to respect your elders. But what if that elder has just been wrong, well, since 1968? My God. Why are we still listening to this person? Maybe they don't have any talent. Maybe their talent is to get their crappy views out into the public where they can infect others with their terrible, terrible opinions. That's the only thing I can think of. Let's get to the first article. Let me just do, I'm sorry, it takes me a second to get to where I want to go. First article for tonight, something I saw on Yahoo, but I've seen a lot of tweets about this. I've seen a lot on Twitter, and I just felt I should put in my 2 cents. It says humanity is not sustainable. 60 Minutes cites discredited population bomb Arthur as an environmental authority. I mean, that is a vicious headline. Okay. Humanity is not sustainable. 60 Minutes cites discredited population bomb author as environmental authority. So at what point are you wrong after your prediction in 1960? Let's go through this and kind of deconstruct. Why are you putting this fellow on TV? Paul Ehrlic, who predicted that mass starvation would wipe out humanity decades ago, was invited to appear on an episode of 60 Minutes that aired Sunday night to revive his argument that current levels of human consumption will lead to the mass extinction of plants, animals, and mankind itself, echoing the case he first made in his since discredited 1968 book, The Population Bomb. Okay, now the guy wrote a book in 1968, The Population Bomb. The next paragraph, Ehrlich is a Stanford University biology professor, best known for predicting that a global famine driven by overpopulation would all but wipe out human civilization in the 70s. The battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s, the world will undergo famines. Hundreds of millions of people are going to starve to death. Nothing can prevent a substantial increase in the world death rate. Ehrlich and his co-author and wife warned readers in the book's introduction. Guy is a biology professor at Stanford. Said that by 1980 we were in deep trouble. I believe like Time, or that was a magazine, I don't even know if it still exists, made him like the man of the year one year. It's like the green movement before the green movement. Okay. And unfortunately, the best thing you can do for the environment is die, right? It's just it's a negative and dark view of the world. Despite the infamous blunder which resulted from Ehrlich's failure to account for the revolution in agricultural technology that occurred in the decades after he published his wildly popular book, he maintains that his arguments were broadly correct. And this is what I have to say to that. If you predict something over time, it's got a better chance of happening. For instance, the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup God knows when, just recently. But they hadn't won it ever. And so as a Blues fan, you're sitting there going, well, this might be the year that they win. And it never was. Until finally it was. And then now it's like, If you followed the Rams when they were in St. Louis, they were a terrible team. Terrible. You'd never think of them winning the Super Bowl, and yet they did. I mean, this is one of the big problems that I've had with my own real estate market research. People are saying that the market will go down. Okay, well, it probably will in my lifetime. It already did once, significantly. But when? Is it this year? Is it 6 months from now? Is it a year from now? Is it 2 years? A decade? And at some point, the market will go down. And then at some point, I will be right. And I will be there to remind you that I was right. And so in many ways, the way I look at things is more of a, what are we doing right now? Especially when I'm helping buyers and sellers. Like, what is the situation right now? So let's just go over it. If you're trying to buy a home right now, affordability is crunched because of interest rates. Okay. We also know that while houses aren't houses are available. They are not flying off the shelves like they were this summer. And so we're probably going to structure our offer in such a way that would keep those thoughts in mind, the current situation. So anyway, as a group, I mean, if you look at just the weather forecast, all the technology, all of our knowledge, 10 days from now, you look at your 10-day forecast, it's absolutely worthless. It's not worth the text that they put on the screen. It isn't worth it. Now, 3 days, much more accurate. Tomorrow, I mean, pretty accurate. So predicting a worldwide global famine, 10 years out in the future, I'm not good with that. It says, I do not think my language was too apocalyptic in the population bomb. My language would be even more apocalyptic today, Ehrlic told Retro Report in 2015. Yes, because you've gained fame for one thing, predicting the destruction of humanity. Like, that's your thing. That's your brand. My brand is selling real estate. Okay. Yours is predicting global famine and death. I mean, which one's going to get picked up on the news? I mean, I have a master's degree in real estate construction management. I don't have a doctorate, but I don't know that he does, because wouldn't they say Dr. Paul? I don't know. Interesting. Anyway, in the segment that aired Sunday night, interviewer Scott Pelley asked Ehrlic to weigh in on the topic of the sixth extinction, or the prediction made by some scientists that 75% of all living species will go extinct in the coming decades for the sixth time in recorded history. The alarm Ehrlic sounded in 1968 warned that overpopulation would trigger widespread famine. He was wrong about that. The Green Revolution fed the world, but he also wrote in 1968 that heat from greenhouse gases would melt the polar ice and humanity would overwhelm the wild. Pelley told viewers Sunday night. Well, look, if I make 10 predictions, will one of those 10 end up coming up? I mean, this is like Rasputin, essentially, right? Who is the guy? Did one of the Italian, like Nostradamus? Okay. Like, every once in a while they'll say, like, St. Louis is destined for a huge earthquake, and it was predicted by Nostradamus. But then you go back and read it, and it's all this like wishy-washy stuff. They predicted Hitler. Asked by Pelley whether the current global demands on resources and energy is tolerable, Ehrlic was unequivocal. Humanity is not sustainable. To maintain our lifestyle, years in mind, basically, for the entire planet, you need 5 more Earths. Not clear where they're going to come from. What is this guy supposed to say? Again, he's built a brand. His brand is destruction and death. Like, that's like, would you ask a priest, do you believe in God? This is his religion. It's kind of stupid. It's not stupid that he has this opinion. It could be wrong. But the idea that you would ask someone so involved with needing this to be true. The interview overlooked a famous wager Ehrlic lost to an American economist, Julian Simon, who predicted that the average price of various natural resources would go down with technological advancements, while Ehrlic envisioned skyrocketing prices driven by mass depopulation and scarcity. In 1980, Ehrlic selected 5 metals that he believed would be considerably more valuable a decade later. Ehrlic resoundingly lost the bet. I don't know. People lose bets all the time. I don't even know. Like, did the Cowboys play the Eagles last week? I'm sure people bet on that both ways. During the decades since the population bomb was first released, infant mortality declined, life expectancy increased, and famines dramatically reduced, defying Ehrlic's grim predictions. But so what? You have to understand he is from a generation of brands. His brand is negativity. His brand is, oh, you better watch out. Now, this works out perfectly for those people in the green movement, the new green movement, okay, where we're going to eat bugs and like it. You're standing on his shoulders. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. But listening to this guy is like, as some sort of authority, strikes me as just stupid. And then using him for a motive, like using him for as a basis from which to influence others. Like the story was already written before you came across it. This is an incredible gain. Human history has never shown any achievement to hold a candle that. You'd expect lovers of human life to be jumping with joy at this incredible success. Instead, across the street, we've got them lamenting that there's so many people alive. Simon said at the time of the bet. Yes. I'm not, as we've discussed with YouTube videos, playing to the negative seems to be the best strategy. Always. I think it's because we're hardwired to be fearful. I think. I mean, it only makes sense to me that if you're a caveman and you're out there and like, you got to be thinking, hey man, I need some food. All right. Like, what if I can't find a rabbit today? What if I can't find a moose? Now, I don't know how many people were eating mooses. Or what is the plural of moose? Moose? But I mean, there's this, what if I have no water? I need some fresh water. Now, I don't know that they knew the difference between fresh and salt water. I would think so. But my point is that it's just easier to be negative. If I say to you that we're going to run out of energy in 5 years, more clicks. If I say there's going to be like a global pandemic and we have to prepare now, more clicks. It just seems to be the way we're wired. This man has lost his credibility. Like he's lost his card, right? He's no longer allowed to predict the future of misery because he's not predicting at this point. It's his brand. I'm not like at this day and age, if he came out, there would be calls for him to be deplatformed. I'm perfectly fine with people listening to him and hearing him spout nonsense. I'm just saying, why are people giving him credence in the first place? That's the issue. I'm sure there's like a reason for why I think the way I do about this. I've just always been kind of fascinated by, I mean, is he a charlatan? No. I mean, he has produced something that is very beneficial to those people who do not like the explosion in population in the world. To people that don't like good things and don't want good things to happen to others. A very negative person. He appeals to that person. And it's the same way. Like, look, with Joe Biden, like, I mean, quite a few people are just waiting for him to just, be done. I'm not. I just don't really. I mean, I just don't really. It's kind of like he's just going on. I wouldn't care if it was any politician. Just understand as the president, there's always going to be this group of people that just want change. But for me, to drag this man out of his relative slumber, put him on CBS 60 Minutes, and ask him questions that are designed. Well, not even designed. Ask him questions that his answers are going to be obvious. I just think that's weird. Kind of have to wonder who thought that was a good idea. Are we done with that? Yeah. I don't see anybody in the chat. Now, I want to go to another issue. Now, look, we're gonna leave it right there. I'm gonna just put me on the thing. There are people die every day, right? Some people are famous, they get more press. Some people are more controversial, they get more press. Some people are loved by all, they get more press. But people die every day, okay? And as I've looked through Google search or Google Trends over the years, I've kind of been backing off uh, the memorials to those who have passed for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to what I would say glorify death. I certainly don't want to profit off of someone else's death. Like I don't want clicks just because I'm announcing someone else that died. Now, look, that's just me. Many people have no problems profiteering off of someone's death. I mean, TMZ, I forgot, Jerry Lee Lewis didn't die. They said he had died, and then he died the next day. They were just early. Okay. You're never going to get me getting breaking news about someone passing other than if somebody passes and somebody mentions it and, it's bad. Now, I think an exception should be made for people that either influence your life or, I don't know, certain people I think it's fair to talk about in a larger context. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with this article. It says pro rally driver and YouTube star Ken Block dies in a snowmobile accident. Now, look, if you've ever seen Ken Block's driving, it's just amazing. He was able to somehow harness something that people didn't even know they were missing and put together something that was truly innovative, truly it was like never before seen, never before done that way. And now for him to die, we would all think, how would he die? Well, he would die in a car accident, right? And it wouldn't be in a car accident, him just driving down the street. It would be a car accident. He would do a stunt that no one else had ever tried, and then it didn't work out for him either. And then, that would be bad. There was this lady named Jessie. I don't remember her last name. She was in the car community, and she was trying to do a land speed record, and a tire blew up or something, and she died. Now, that is how we kind of expect our quote unquote heroes to go out. So in reading this, he died in a snowmobile accident, 55 years old. But it just, to me, I just want to go through it and let's go from there. It says pro rally driver Ken Block, who later became an internet sensation with his daring stunts behind the wheel, died aged 55 after a snowmobile accident. His team, Hoonigan Racing, said on Monday, "It's with our deepest regrets that we can confirm Ken Block passed away in a snowmobile accident today." Hoonigan said in a statement on Instagram, "Ken was a visionary, pioneer, and an icon, and most importantly, a father and husband. He will be incredibly missed." Yes, he was all of those things. He did something, and I don't know that you can, I don't know that it's tangible, but he did something, right? There was something about that guy. It says that the accident occurred in Utah's Wasatch County, and the sheriff's office said that Block was riding on a steep slope and when the snowmobile, good Lord, upended and landed on top of him. So that's no good. He was pronounced deceased at the scene from injuries sustained in the accident, adding that he was riding in a group, was alone when the accident occurred. I don't know what that matters. That might be something like maybe you're not supposed to be by yourself on a snowmobile. I don't know. It says, having begun his rallying career in 2005, Black was named Rookie of the Year in the Rally America Championship. He competed in the World Rally Championship and won several Rallycross medals at the X Games. The American also co-founded sportswear company DC Shoes and produced the Gymkhana video series. If by the way, if I've got that wrong, sue me. Which featured him driving on dangerous tracks and obstacle courses. The series racked up millions of views on YouTube. Yes, he was a big deal. Big deal. And it's a shame. It's a shame. Just wanted to put it out there. When I saw the information, I was like, really? That's hard to believe. There will never be another like Ken Block. He had it together. Moving on. Oh, this one I want to do the same thing with. All right, let me frame it. Big on framing tonight. Now look, to me, if you've been given a gift in this life of millions of dollars, okay, if you have millions of dollars, you aren't playing by the same rules that I'm playing by, okay? And in some ways, you could say it's not fair to you because your rules are different than mine. You could say that. And I'm sorry. It's true. If you take the public light, okay, the public spotlight, if you take it, if you use it and craft it to your benefit, okay, or the benefit of others to the tunes of millions of dollars, you do not have the same rules to live by that I do. And what I would say to this is, look, if something happens to me tomorrow, the New York Times isn't writing my obituary. No one is writing anything. There will not be one tweet about me. Certainly not like Ken Block. And look, it's just the way it is. I mean, my family and maybe a couple of friends will be at my funeral, but it's not going to be this massive outpouring of support. Okay. It's like the hierarchy or the food chain, and I'm down at the bottom. But there are certain things I cannot do in good conscience. One of those is like, you shouldn't, if you're a man, you shouldn't hit a woman. I mean, I know that sounds weird, especially nowadays. It's just something that shouldn't be done. I mean, there's lots of things you shouldn't do. Okay. But when you are a celebrity with a public image, it's not like it's not even close that you can't do. I mean, you literally can't do these things. Right? And yet we see it happen. And I always think, why? Why did this person do this? This was dumb. They had a carefully crafted image and they blew it. Why? Why? How could you do that? And then, God forbid, you advocate against a position and then get caught doing it. That's like even worse. And so we go to our next article. Endeavor shares fall after video shows UFC boss Dana White hitting wife on New Year's Eve. Like, he can come at you and say, how can you at the worst moment of my life have filmed it? What kind of person are you? He can turn that around on you. But what kind of a world are we living in when the story is not that the man hit his wife? but the shares of the company of which he is associated with. It's not clear to me what his role is. How can the share price be the most important story? And you say, well, it's from CNBC, John. It's about the stock market. Yeah, but come on. There is no one, I mean, I don't feel like there's anyone out there that actually believes that a stock moves down today based on this news has any relevance to what the share performance will be at the end of the year. I mean, Tesla's down. Did Elon Musk punch his wife? You know what I'm saying? I think the market was down today like 200 points, which usually means that one of the larger market cap companies had a bad day. You know, I despise this whole thing. And you say, well, yet you're talking about it. Yes, because I despise it so much. I just don't understand. So let's go. Oh, by the way, I want you to know, I guess, full disclosure, I was on Twitter. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but there's this grainy video of Dana White, and it looks like his wife smacks him, and he hauls off and smacks back. Okay. Now, who in the world is filming this? I don't know. Is this legit? I don't know. I don't know. It's just a mess. It says shares of Endeavor, the owner of the Ultimate Fighting Champion, fell after video surfaced of UFC president Dana White hitting his wife. Now, my thing is the video surfaces, and like I said, it's not like real like pro video. Like you're not even sure if it's him, and it seems very. It's like I don't know. Do you ever? I'll just ask. Like, do you have like do you have that one couple that you go out with and like they're married, but you're never quite sure how things are going, and you don't want to know? Like you're going to go to dinner with them, a double date, if you will, and you're a night out, and you go with them, and then you're on pins and needles the whole night because you don't want to be the one that eventually causes them to break up or get divorced. So you're like all on pins and needles the whole night, and like you just want to eat. Like you don't want to be in their mess. This is the way I see this. I don't want to be in this fella's mess. Like this is for them to take care of on their own. But again, like I said, the rules don't apply equally and evenly. It's not unusual these days to be embarrassed in public because everyone has a camera. White issued a public apology on Monday, according to media reports. Well, again, like now you've got this, I would say, domestic violence situation, and then his penitence is that he apologizes. But if he's human, right? And like I've met real estate agents that are not human. They are sharks, and they do not have high levels of thought. They just operate based on just being a shark. That guy has to be feeling terrible. She has to be feeling, the whole thing is just a mess. Like awful. I don't wish that on anybody. Let's continue with the article. Media and entertainment company Endeavor saw its shares fall on Tuesday after a video showing Dana White, the president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship business, slapping his wife. Endeavor shares closed down nearly 6%. Now, does anybody really think that without Dana White, the UFC can't continue? I mean, who doesn't want to watch? Now, I don't, but who doesn't want to watch like a glorified, battle in hand-to-hand combat? I don't. I think it's terrible. But again, that's just me. Now, I'm starting to think the only way that, look, CNBC is no different than anyone else, CNBC.com. They need clicks, right? no one probably knows about the Endeavor company. Like just, your random person, but they may know about Dana White. They may know. They may be able to get clicks from Dana White. So then you have to find an angle for which to include Dana White to get a story so that you can get clicks. I'm just trying to walk through why or how Dana White gets involved in this. How does this issue get on CNBC? I think I just got it. I understand Dana White has a target on his back from a number of different people. Number one, I wouldn't say people like myself, because again, if you want to have, blood sport, by all means, right? I mean, it's not my thing. Okay, but there's probably people out there, maybe 4 or 5 people out there that are like, you need to stop this. Okay, there's those people. I believe Dana White during the pandemic refused to shut down his sport, right? I think they got an island somewhere. So that you can't do that. And then I think that Dana White supported Trump, which is also a no-no. So, I mean, this guy had a target on his back, and he should have known that the minute that he made a mistake, they were going to come and get him. But they were waiting for him to make a mistake. This week, a video published by TMZ showed White getting into an altercation with his wife Ann at a New Year's Eve party in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. In the video, it appears the two are arguing before Ann White slaps Dana White. He then slaps her. She hit me first. See, this whole thing is like now we're judging sides of a domestic dispute. We don't know what was said. We don't know anything about this. All I can say is it looked bad. Very bad. Very uncomfortable. Endeavor and the UFC didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. What were they going to do? Apparently, they're going to issue a public apology, which came Monday. Ann White also issued a separate statement to TMZ calling it an isolated incident. Now this is, White is synonymous with the UFC having served as its president since 2001. This is where it hurts. And this is what happens when now he's been in the spotlight since 2001, right? So when you're in the spotlight long enough, you have tape. There's tape of you saying things. Okay. And so for me, I've only got tape really on the internet for the last year and a half. So, but I've said some things that are, that can come back and get me at any point in time. I get it. In 2014, White spoke out about domestic violence after Ray Rice of the NFL assaulted his fiance, saying, "You don't bounce back from putting your hands on a woman. It's been that way in the UFC since we started here." Following the comments, White also revealed the UFC screens people for domestic violence. See, now it looks bad, especially the framing. This reporter has framed Dana White as saying one thing, yet doing the other. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, in that he has not stepped down, right? Would the screening have showed he has a propensity for domestic violence? Hollywood powerhouse Endeavor began as a talent agency and was co-founded by one of the industry's most recognizable agents, Ari Emanuel. Endeavor has bulked up over the years through a series of acquisitions, owning and managing live events like the Miami Open and the Miss Universe International Beauty Pageant. Endeavor acquired a controlling interest in the UFC, a popular mixed martial arts league, in 2016 and took full ownership of UFC in 2021. The Endeavor had its initial public offering, according to a securities filing. See, like, why am I reporting this? Why am I discussing this? Because domestic violence is bad. And what I would say in the context of today's world, that hitting a woman is bad. Like, however one defines themselves gender-wise, still bad. And I just think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. And that's where I'm going to leave that. Let's get into some real estate. Sorry that it got heavy. It's just one of those things. I despise some of this stuff. So what did interest rates do today? Interest rates are at 6.45%, down 9 basis points from 6.54%. I think the markets were closed yesterday. So this would be the first print today. 6.45, still not great for affordability. I saw a meme about people that are uncomfortable with a mortgage at 6.5% with a car payment, a car interest rate of like 8% and a credit card bill at like 18%. And in some ways, I believe that. And in some ways, that was one of the biggest problems during the last credit crunch, is that people were taking out like huge lines of home equity to pay for like credit card debt, because the credit card debt was 18%. And yet the interest rate for real estate was like 6%, which at the time was like great. It's almost like the cheap debt like automatically causes people to do things that make sense. Like it makes sense. But the problem with like the home equity line of credit to clear credit card debt is there was a reason why you had credit card debt in the first place. It was, probably because you weren't making enough money elsewhere, or you have terrible spending habits. And that doesn't change just because you get a home equity line of credit. So what's the position today in the marketplace for me? Well, I mean, if I have a buyer, we go and we try to find something affordable for the 6.5% interest rates. Now, people tell me all the time, John, will refinance when the market changes. Well, you may. It's certainly possible, but you better hope that the home prices are to the point where you have equity in your home at that point in time. It doesn't make any sense to try to, and then the fact that there was some refinancing going on recently was surprising to me. What are you doing refinancing at this rate? This. Let me just tell you what the narrative is. I don't know if I believe it. The narrative is this: the Fed will over tighten. People will lose their jobs. House prices will drop. At that point, the Fed will go, oh my God, what did we just do? We need to pivot. And then they're going to pivot and they're going to start lowering rates, because they have their images to protect. They have their jobs to keep. If they get, if someone, accurately points the finger at them for, economic, terrible fiscal management of the U.S. economy, they'll lose their jobs. They'll lose their, well, actually, to be honest with you, nothing will happen to them. They will still have speakerships. They will still be able to teach at any of the prestigious universities in the world. But I mean, that's okay because anyway, the idea though is that you're going to see the Fed lower the borrowing rate, lower the Fed funds rate, which will cause a collapse in mortgage rates. That's when you're going to refinance. Like, people are of the opinion that this is already going to happen. And that's what's so dangerous. I know that when my grandmother was still alive, she was a big investor in, I think it was Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, in one of those. And when I say big investor, I mean a significant portion of her fixed income retirement was in that debt, because she reasoned, and quite accurately, by the way, that the government's never going to allow itself to go bankrupt. That money was always guaranteed. That they would make rules to go ahead and make sure that money got paid, and look at what they did. I thought my grandma was nuts when she thought that. Let's look at some tweets. Ltmleverage writes, the number of active housing units is not inventory. This is inventory units per capita. Very interesting. Very interesting. Probably true. But what's weird is being in real estate, okay? Inventory to me is units available for purchase on the market. And it is because like throughout this whole time, we've had way more buyers than we've had sellers. And so it's like I need, like, for a buyer, I need to be able to show them like 10 houses to buy one. And if there's not 10 houses available, then we're in trouble because, you know, we don't have enough inventory to make a good decision on a home to purchase. His argument, or their argument, is that inventory is the total available number of units. No, the total number of units available, occupied or not, active housing or not. I don't know what you think. I'm just putting it out there. This fellow here, now this is Stephen, we're going to go with Punwasi. Yes, we're going to go with that tonight. Now, he's in Canada. He is critical of the Canadian housing response. You say, John, you're in the United States. What do you care about Canada? I don't really care about Canada per se. I care about the way the world looks at dwellings like houses. I do care about that. And you say, why? Well, I don't know. I'm in the business and trends happen across the world, and I don't want to be surprised by something that may happen here. Let's continue. It says, Canada says, we exceeded our immigration targets. We did it. He says, oh, so you expanded medical and social services so more people can access them. I say nothing. He says, does that mean you literally just stamped more applications? We're busy choosing rental properties, but we'll get to it. FYI, that's why Canada is the only country that does this. All countries want immigrants, but it requires resources. Canada just wants rent checks. It doesn't care if they lie to immigrants about opportunity, trap them into low-paid jobs, and takes 50% of their income to share a cot. Canada needs more people that will pay $800 a month to share a basement in a suburb 1 hour outside of Toronto. $1,600 a month for the basement, which is less than the average mortgage payment. We're so generous. Can you believe that? $800 to share a basement in a suburb 1 hour outside of Toronto. I'm sure let's look at the definition of anti-immigrant. If you do not want immigration restricted in any way, then you are pro-immigration. If you do want some restrictions, you would be anti-immigration or anti-immigrant. Any restrictions, that is to say a change of the number, increase or decrease, anything, you'd be anti-immigrant. I could be considered anti-immigrant even though I'm married to a refugee from Bosnia. It's a very weird world we live in. All I would say is, look, I'm not convinced that much of the U.S. economy is not built on the backs of people with less economic opportunity than a citizen of the United States. And I think that's not unusual across the world. A cynical me says that the EU accepts membership countries so they can loot their labor force and bring them to more wealthy countries. People would say that's fine because the money's going back to these poorer countries, but there's people involved. And that's where I've always been stuck. I care about people. At the end of the day, our policy should be, how can we hurt fewer people? Like, that should be the goal. Like, and I say, how can we hurt fewer people? I mean it like that. Our policy is designed to help people oftentimes do far more damages than than if you were going out there and trying to do it on your own. I don't want that. And you say, well, name one. Rent control. There, I've named one. Horrible. Horrible. Markets in Mayhem says the housing situation is likely to get worse this year. Same housing markets already turned, others are about to year-on-year change in house prices. In the 2022 estimate, home price increases in the UK between 5 and 10%. Forecast for the next year is at least over a negative 6%. France, I don't really care about France. US, again, the estimate on 2022, a little bit above 5%. The forecast, a drop, but not as much as the UK or, God forbid, Australia. Australia is going through it right now. Canada is going through it right now. No offense, like, these are these small, like, middling countries like the UK, Canada, Australia. You know, they're not the United States. They're not China. Don't see anything about India there. Why is that? Why is India not on the map? Soon to be the largest population in the world. Real Kelly E, I thought this was interesting. This is the way it looks. 36. This is from Lance Lambert. Originally, 36 of the nation's 400 largest housing markets are above 2019 inventory levels. Today versus 2019 is the good metric for real estate. I don't believe it is. I don't agree with this at all. Why am I sharing it with you? Because I want you to know there's times I'll read stuff and I don't agree with it. I don't want you to think that I'm always pushing one direction. I'd like to think about other things. There's a huge topic I'd like to discuss in the NFL, but I won't discuss it because I don't want to get kicked off of YouTube. And I think that even saying certain words will get me thrown out. Now, I may have already gotten thrown out tonight on a number of things. Anyway, I don't think 2019 is a good metric for real estate. I would like to know what the rates were in 2019. Were they 6.5%? Well, I will look. Now, it probably won't be a good source, and it'll probably look like an idiot, but here we go. From what I am seeing, 2019, I was looking at 77 and saying, like, what is this? 2019, like 3%, 4%. We're at 6. So it's not like 2019. You say, well, the inventory levels are. Doesn't mean anything. Let's look at the end of the year, I think. Like, let's see how all this Fed work does at the end of the year. Dustin Jalbert, he says he's a Mainer, an econ guy, wood products analyst, political junkie. Opinions are his own. saw this. I thought it was interesting. Let's go through it. It says, so census reported residential improvement spending, i.e. total residential minus new single family and new multifamily, is up 33% year to date through November. So they're talking about the remodeling market of houses currently constructed. Okay. He says, I still find these numbers extremely hard to believe in the context of collapsing lumber prices and other indicators of R&R activity. I think we're talking about residential improvement spending. It says, Exhibit A, aggregate weekly hours work for professional remodelers is up 1.8% year to date through October. So it's pretty obvious that very little of the year-over-year growth is volume driven. It's inflation driven. That's also emphasized by Home Depot and Lowe's transaction versus ticket growth. So he's saying, look, if there's all this, if there's really 33% spending increased year to date, then that should show up. Shouldn't it show up in the hours worked for professional remodelers? I would say no. Why? Because the people at Home Depot and Lowe's are people that do things by themselves. I would say not the vast majority. I would say like 30% of people that buy things at Lowe's are actually doing it themselves. It says the PPI for residential maintenance is up 18.3% year to date in October. If you simplistically tack this on top of aggregate hours worked, you get 20% growth in spending. It would imply an explosion of contractor margins to make up the extra 13%. Plausible, I guess. It could be. I literally have a deal right now where, I know the closing date, and my concern is going to be like, can we get somebody over there to do it in time? Because people I know can be up to 6 months out in their various fields. Just a second, I have to turn one thing off. Okay, I did. So Exhibit B, spending through major home centers like Home Depot and Lowe's trending much lower through Q3. We're talking low to mid single digit growth in sales year over year. So transactions at Home Depot's negative 4.3%, negative 5.3%. Home Depot, the average ticket up 8% at Lowe's and Home Depot. Transactions still down year over year. Foot traffic part of the story. Building material inflation still driving rising top line sales. I believe that. So they say, well, the number is higher because the products purchased are more expensive. Granted, a lot of weakness this past year or so in home improvement spending has shown up in the DIY side of the market. So it makes sense spending wouldn't be growing as much as in Home Depot and Lowe's, but by such a wide margin compared to residential improvement spending. My hypothesis is that the reason why it's not, first of all, the number's wrong. He's correct about that, or she. Is that the people that are doing most of the work and doing most of the spending are, owners of their homes. We're not going to get into like the idea that there's a lot of people out there that work in construction that are not, not here legally. Therefore, hard to track if they're paid in cash, my opinion, for the estimates of the hourly hours worked metric. And, there's a very compelling case for many homeowners that have purchased during the 2 to 3% mortgage rate phenomenon on a 30-year fixed. If you don't like your bathroom, change it. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than going out and trying to buy a house of similar or greater value at 6% mortgage rates. You should be remodeling that house, right? It's still cheaper than going and buying a new home, and you're not going to get as much, and you're going to be paying higher rates. I think this is going to be a multi-year story. Now, how it plays out as far as in the numbers, that'll be another thing. But you've got an awful lot of the population locked in 3% mortgage rates or below. So good luck unfreezing that That's why I say the 2019 comparison with inventories makes no sense to me, because you've got so many people who have either refinanced or who are, in a low mortgage rate home, and they can't afford to move to a better place at 6%. Not going to happen. 6.5. Darth Powell, the last one. This is something that he said for a long time. Typical home resale at a higher price is solely a wealth transfer. No wealth is being created. Nothing is being produced. And then somebody writes, because they're smart, they say improvements to home and broader area can matter. He responds, documented improvements can inflate the price by roughly the cost of the improvements. Sure, most homes aren't typically improved much, if at all. I'll be honest with you. Shocking. I've actually shown many houses in my time. And I'll tell you, you'd think that like somebody buys a house and it's a sweet deal. Like, let's say there's a house in our market for $180,000 in Afton, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, very, very dated. The person that left, died. They were carried out of the house and they hadn't done any maintenance for the last 20 years. Oh, and there's like a basement sewer leak. I say, oh, there's a basement sewer leak because I'm dealing with one in my own house. What that means is you have to tear out the floors, tear out the walls in the basement. And so where I'm coming from there is, oh, you would think the person that buys is like, well, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to fix this house up and I'm going to live in it. Well, it turns out most of the time it's actually someone that buys the house where they can only afford $180,000 and they can probably never fix it up. So it just stays terrible. You wouldn't believe that. You wouldn't believe that. I see it every day. I'll tell you what, I'm getting kind of tired. I think I'm going to head on out. I hope you're okay with that. I got articles, but I'm just going to go with them tomorrow night. I thought we've had a good show. I liked it. I liked the way it went, but I think it's getting a little late tonight. I think I would just like to cut it here. I don't have anybody in the chat right now. For those of you who watch later, I appreciate it. Put your comments in the comment section. I'll read those, but I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.